Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Today we've got a special guest coming on the show. Somewhat of a mysterious character who I first found out about on Twitter through a profile called ImperatorLang. I think I'm saying that right, but I'm sure you can correct me. There was a tweet floating around talking about somebody who was looking to bring Python and other languages to Cardano. And that really interested me. And we made a video covering it about a week or so ago. But since then, I've been dying to have Niels on the show to really talk to us a little bit more about what he's doing. So thank you very much for coming on, Niels. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, shall we start off maybe by a little bit of an introduction? Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So, my name is Niels. I am developer on the Cardano blockchain. I am a trained computer scientist. That's my background. I worked with a few projects, and I found that something is missing in the landscape, and then I founded ImperatorLang and started building on the core. So before I did more of, I participated in huge dexes that kind of build on top of the existing smart contract languages and the app frameworks. And now I want to dive in a bit more into the how do you say, the internals,
the infrastructure,
and the organs. Yes.
Yeah, so that brings us perfectly on to what it is you're actually trying to do. Maybe you could talk about what you're actually trying to do with that infrastructure.
So during my working with these other projects, I noticed that there's a lot of confusion about what actually runs on Cardano and how you can actually build on Cardano. A lot of people think Cardano is built on Haskell. The Cardano node is built in Haskell. So everything you have to do, everything you build to interact with it has to be in Haskell. And that's actually not true. So I've used all kinds of languages, all kinds of tool stacks to interact. And there's new ones coming every month. And what always struck me is that the language used to write the smart contracts, however, that one is most of the time Haskell, and it has been chosen to be Haskell for some security reasons. But also, Haskell is very hard to pick up by a lot of developers, and that's also a problem. That means that for a lot of developers, it's not really intuitive to write in Haskell, and that also is a security issue, in my opinion. So what I'm trying to do, to make things short, what I'm trying to do is to build a smart contract language that's intuitive and secure. And by intuitive, I mean it looks and feels like Python, which is a very popular, very simple-minded programming language. It's like you can almost read it like English, and it's supposed to be as accessible as possible, and enhance it with the security features that are given by Haskell, and then let you run smart contracts written in this accessible and simple language on the Cardano blockchain.
Yeah, so that is such an important task. I think if we really want to get Cardano to where it needs to be, it needs to be, from the sort of the feedback that I've found, simpler to build upon, and you're kind of bridging that gap potentially, or that gap. I don't know why I did it with such a small.
I think this is more accurate, actually. The gap's quite huge. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think that means fantastic things for Cardano as a blockchain, because it's not losing its underlying security of Haskell. It's something you're putting on top of that, and again bridging that gap. And actually, its ecosystem, it's something I'm very excited to see how all this plays out. So you really are pioneering in many regards and sort of evolving Cardano as a blockchain. So can I maybe just ask you, why adding Python and other programming languages is just so important. I know you've touched on it there, but maybe just if you can expand on that.
Yeah, I think there are actually two aspects on it. One of them is that a blockchain should grow, should be able to be built upon by many developers coming from different backgrounds. But I mean, the blockchain has to be secure, which is why Haskell was chosen for Cardano, right? But also the inherent purpose of a blockchain is to be decentralized and to be trustless. So you want as many people as possible to be able to look at your code and understand what the blockchain is doing, because the code is what the blockchain is doing, right? If you don't understand the code, then you don't understand the blockchain. So bringing Python as a smart contract language, a language that you can almost understand by just looking at it and reading the sentence out loud that's written there, that makes it possible for peer auditing of DEXs, of whatever product you're using on the blockchain, if they're using this language and open sourcing, which is normally the case if you're interacting with blockchains. So yeah, there's the one thing is Python smart contracts enable a lot more developers to build, but also enable a lot bigger part of the community to understand what's going on, to understand how it works.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And it is a huge issue that there's such a barrier to entry, I think, for builders, even in EVM. I know it's a little bit more, solidity and that kind of things is a little bit more understandable than potentially Haskell. But again, what you're doing, I think is really, I'm totally on board with it, and that's why I was so excited about having you on. Are there any security issues with onboarding these languages, and can you foresee any other issues coming forward in the future? Are there any issues initially with this making Python usable on Cardano, or are there any issues associated with that?
So let me put it like this: if you take Python as it is to build critical infrastructure, I cannot really recommend that, because Python lets you do insane, weird things. You can I don't know, do runtime injection of code and all these weird features. And this is why I wouldn't recommend on building, for example, the node in Python, because I'm not sure if Python is built for that. But Python is built for short scripts that are understandable. And so what I'm actually doing with Eopsine, that's the name of the language, it's a part of Python. So it doesn't let you do the nasty things that you can do with Python. For example, you cannot do runtime injection. You cannot use every library. You cannot call arbitrary C code. You can just use a strict typing subset of Python. That means that all of the expressions have to work out, that the compiler can check that you're not comparing, I don't know, values that cannot be compared, or that you're not throwing any errors unintentionally. So in a sense, I'm taking the good parts of Python, which is that it's so easily accessible and so simple to write and understand, and taking the good parts of Haskell, which is the strict typing and the security guarantees that you give by just being able to compile the program. So the compiler already gives you a lot of guarantees about this is going to be good. And this, I'm trying to merge this here, and that's the goal. And of course, there will probably be a push towards some new features in the language, more features, more weird stuff in a sense. And there's going to be a push towards more security. So we have to balance that out, I think. But I think that's very doable. And I'm also foreseeing that there will probably be different versions of how much of Python you allow in the language. And maybe you can disable features that are just considered not secure.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that doesn't do any sort of coding or anything like that and doesn't read languages myself, could you maybe elaborate on a little bit about what Eopsine actually is? So is this a language you've came up with yourself, or... Oh, wow, fantastic. Yeah.
So it all started a few months ago when I thought, so there's I'll dive a bit into the background here. So Haskell is a functional programming language, and a lot of the stuff that's built on top of Cardano is also functional. And that's if you look at all the programming languages there's like two main branches, which is functional and imperative. And most of the languages, the code is programmed in that you interact with every day is imperative. That's just because it's just so dominant. I don't there's drawbacks and there's advantages of this code, but it's just the dominant one. And yeah, Cardano is built on Haskell, which is a smaller which is part of this functional language tree, but yeah, and this is where a lot of the criticism came from. That Cardano has so little potential for developers to board on, and I think that's not true for two reasons. One is that you can interact like from the outside with the Cardano node in any language you want, and the second is, and that's where my idea came a few months ago, that you can actually translate imperative languages to functional languages and the other way around. But in this case, it's more interesting to have a functional language to have the normal language, the language that everyone knows, and just translate it over into the functional language that's the basis of, for example, the smart contracts in Cardano. So that's what I did. I wrote a small prototype, and then I figured, well, I'm not going to invent a new language. That's just, it's so much work. And then again, you have a new language that people have to pick up. So I decided, let's go for Python, a language that almost everyone knows, that's easy to pick up, and there's tons of tooling for it. So yeah, that's Ipsy now, and so it's, in a sense, the restrictions I added on it, they are my invention, but the language itself, that's Python. That's not my invention.
Yeah, no, that's awesome stuff. Why did you choose to build on Cardano in the first place? Could I maybe get your takes on that as somebody who is studied computer science? You know, why Cardano? Why not Ethereum? Why not, you know, any of these other layer ones? Why Cardano?
Yeah, maybe it has already gleaned through a little bit. So during my studies, I focused a lot on security and verification, verifiability and correctness of programs. And well, let's put it like this: the fact that Cardano is built in Haskell, the fact that the developers involved in its development are actually very skilled people and very, let's say, theoretically inclined, have put a lot of thought and research into making it a stable and resilient system. That just drew me to it, because I'm also this technically inclined, I would say. So I think this is just a very solid foundation to build on top of, and I think that's a good enough reason to start looking into something. And then I found the ideas behind Cardano very intriguing. The concepts simple and elegant, which is great if you want to build something something solid, something that's easy to understand. And then I mean, yeah. So the problems that arise from these elegant things, from the fact that it's not just like all the other EVM chains, that's an interesting problem for me, and I like to work on it. And I see that people appreciate the work, so that keeps me here. I think the community is also a great factor to why I want to stay in the space.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I speak to lots of people who are sort of, you know, whether it's building dApps. I've got to admit, you're the first individual I've spoke to that's sort of looking to come up with a new programming language that you can sort of use. But one thing that they all do say is the sort of ideas behind Cardano, certainly from a paper standpoint and now moving towards a practical standpoint, are very sound in reasoning and you know, very sort of elegant, like you put it, in terms of design. I don't know if you saw the other day on Sunday night, I think it was over 50% of the nodes went down. If that was any other blockchain, I don't think it would have been dealt with in the kind of manner that it was. I don't think we have the full reasoning behind that yet, or do we?
I read through a few threads, but anyways, I mean, it's a fault tolerant system, right? So it was built to tolerate faults, and it tolerated the fault, which is nice to have practical proof for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great.
We saw. I think there was blocks literally minted within seconds whilst this was going on. So it was. I mean, I run a stake pool, and I think only one of our nodes got affected. Luckily, one of our relay nodes, but
right.
the rest was working.
So you're part of the non-fault of the system.
Yeah. So yeah, we kept it going, guys. No, I'm joking. Yeah. We were one of many, and it's again a power of decentralization, having all these nodes. You know, I know there's some blockchains out there where you only have maybe 100, some even less in terms of validators, and you're kind of asking for trouble. I think there, you know, part of the power that Cardano has comes from decentralization.
Then again, picking up on this, just a grain of salt is that there's only one node, more or less. There are different versions, but there's only one node. So if we really want to achieve decentralization much more, we need more diversity in the implementations of the nodes. And here comes Irpsin again, also in the programming languages, also in the way that we build on top of that, so that there's no single point of failure. If some tool chain breaks or is intruded or whatever, the other tool chains should be unaffected. So it's great to see that we have so much independent tooling already, and I'm very looking forward to more independent nodes. But I mean, we see already that with the current implementation, it's already quite stable. I mean, not quite. It's stable, right?
It is. Yeah. No, it's, you know, that's why I love talking to people like yourself, because you've got really good takes on it all. And I think you're absolutely right. You know, there needs to be multiple angles that we look to attack the same problem. And the good thing is the base layer is Haskell built. So this is kind of like, if you look at what maybe Polkadot or Atom are doing, or Cosmos, I should say, where they're trying to be the sort of security chain that people build layer ones on top of. Well, actually, Cardano, even though it's a layer one and not a layer zero or whatever you want to call it, a cosmos of independent layer one blockchains, the base layer you can actually build basically vertically on top of, with things like side chains and different tool. It's fantastic. I mean, it confuses me because, like I say, I'm not technically gifted like that, but it's certainly fascinating looking from the outside in. Have you got any sort of a timeline on this sort of stuff? Or I suppose it's very hard to say. You've already
it's extremely hard to say, and it depends on I mean, different factors: time, funding, public interest. If there's a project that's picking this up and wants to use it for itself, then it's probably gonna develop quite quickly. If it's just me, then it will take a bit more time. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I just thought I'd ask. You know, you don't ask, you don't get.
I mean, essentially, it's done in a sense that you can go and use it, and that was my main goal. That I have it done this in these weeks, essentially in this year, and now I'm looking forward to anyone picking it up and collaborating or funding or whatever to take it to its full potential. Now it's just you can go and build on top of it, and you're welcome to do it.
Yeah, that brings me pretty perfectly onto my next question. You know, I'm certainly very much in favor of what you're doing. If people want to support you, what's the best way for them to do that? Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think it's important that we support people who are independently building in this ecosystem. You know, we need to all help each other, help ourselves, I think. So is there any way that people can help you out? You know, any kind of funding that just maybe talk me through a little bit about that.
I mean, the first and easiest way is, of course, to always just tag me or retweet the account ImperatorLang, share with your friends, share with those that are critical, like, oh, I cannot write a smart contract, I need to use Haskell or something like that. Share with them that, no, there are alternatives, and allowing the influx of developers or attention to the project already helps. So that's a great first step. I will be applying for Catalyst funding. So if you have a Cardano wallet and you are staking and want to know which projects to support, you will be able to vote for EOPSIN to receive some funding. There's also the way to, I have an ADA handle. You can just send me a message which project or which features exactly you want to have supported, and drop some ADA there. And yeah, or just reach out to me. If you're a developer, maybe you want to collaborate, reach out to me. Tell me you want to work on something. Where can you start? I'm open for everything.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll leave all your links in the description, of course. Also, your ADA handle. Did you get the ADA handle that you wanted?
Actually, EOPSIN was already taken.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but actually, there was really nice. One developer just contacted me, said he's excited about my work, and dropped me 2 ADA handles, one with ImperatorLang and one with Pythonic.
Wow. Yeah.
Said, yeah, here you go. Now you can receive more donations.
And maybe if there is someone with EOPSIN out there listening, there'll be an ADA handle below. Yeah, somebody actually, believe it or not, when the ADA handles were getting minted, of course, you had people that were thinking they were going to make quite a lot of money off buying, kind of like domain names, right?
Like domain squatting.
But I had one of my viewers actually buy it for me and spin it for free. And I was like, you don't want anything for doing this? So there are some really good and genuine people out there. And then, whenever you come and Catalyst comes around, I'm sure we can do another one of these interviews. It's certainly something that I'm very interested in seeing progressing, just because of the reasons we've spoken about on this interview. So on that note, I'm going to love and leave you. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you on, Niels. For anybody who is looking for Niels' social medias to find out and keep up to date with what he's doing, link in the description, also the ADA handle. Thank you very much, Niels. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.